So after a listless, lifeless 0-2 start by the New York Football Giants, the decision has been made by the organization and head coach Pat Shurmur that it is time for a change at the quarterback position. It is no longer Eli Manning's ship to captain and ultimately sink. They will be turning to rookie first-round pick, 6th overall out of Duke, Daniel Jones. That's interesting. It did not take long. And let's be realistic here. If you watched any or a good portion of their first two games, like I watched them against the Bills, I watched them against the Giants, so I saw quite a bit of the Giants these first 2 weeks. Like, it's time. Let's keep it real here. It's time. Eli Manning can't move. Eli Manning doesn't want to move in the pocket. He's a lame sitting duck back there who doesn't nearly have the arm talent that he once did, and even that wasn't exactly ever top level. It's just crazy to think about, though. His 16th year in the league, he's almost, 38 years of age. Eli Manning, for all intents and purposes, unless he goes somewhere else, is done as a starting quarterback in the National Football League, and more importantly, barring injury for the first-round pick Daniel Jones, he is done being the face of the franchise of the New York Football Giants. I don't think this news comes as a surprise to anyone. Like, realistically, going into 2019, what in the hell did you expect you were going to get out of Eli Manning? What did you expect? You could say, well, last year he had his best ever career completion percentage. It was all dink and dunk crap. He was terrible. And the reality is, he's been terrible the past 2+ seasons. Even the last time this Giants team made the playoffs in 2016, he was okay, maybe a little better than okay, but he was never special, which is kind of a trend of his entire career, both in college and the pros. He was never really truly special. But I look at this Giants organization and I say, why in the hell would you put yourself through this? Why would you put yourself in this position? And what planet were you living in? What reality did you dwell in that made you think that Eli Manning was going to win you a bunch of games this year? This is the one thing I never understood. And it just boggles my mind. You keep Eli, in part because you're saying you want to win now. You most certainly do not keep a 16-year veteran who has been the face of your franchise for a decade and a half, who's going to go into the Hall of Fame wearing your jersey, who have won you 2 Super Bowl titles. You don't go into year 16 with him as your damn backup, paying him $20+ damn million. That's stupid. So obviously, you bring him back for another season because you think you can win. But you think you can win by trading away your best player in Odell Beckham Jr. That makes no damn sense. And then when you look at it, they basically traded away Odell Beckham Jr. to get a defensive tackle in Dexter Lawrence at 17 and a 3rd-round pick. Like, who does this? Who the hell thinks this is a good idea? So you take a combination of Eli being washed up, a coach that I have zero confidence in Pat Shurmur, and you trade away his best offensive weapon. So you're putting yourself into a we're going to win this year mode without the pieces in place you need to be able to win this year. Your defense was going to stink. You traded away your best weapon. Like, what the hell did you think was going to happen? It is ultimately hard to feel all that sorry for Eli Manning because the dude is getting paid a crap ton of money to ultimately not play the vast majority of the season. Now, you could call that a sympathy payment. You could call that an emotional kind of thank you payment, if you will. And you could maybe make the argument that Eli Manning deserves it. But it's hard to feel sorry for him for that. But once you remove the money factor, and let's try to do that here for a moment, the fact is situations like this are never easy. And sometimes you have to be ruthless. Like, I look at the Packers. When they drafted Aaron Rodgers in the 1st round in 2005, he sat for 3 years behind Brett Favre. But by God, when it became time, and the Packers made a decision and they moved on and they didn't look back. Sometimes you have to make those hard decisions and you move the hell on. what was it, years ago, Belichick cut Lawyer Malloy. He was a really popular player in that Patriots locker room, and guess what they did? They won a damn Super Bowl. Sentimentality can only carry you so far, and sentimentality at some point in time could cloud your decision making and affect you from making good, sound football decisions. So I think it is an indictment on that idiot of a general manager, Dave Gettleman, to put Eli Manning in this type of situation where, frankly, you were going to expose him. Yes, you're paying him a bunch of money to suck this year, and that's exactly what he did. He sucked, and you paid him a bunch of money to do so. And in no shape or form is Eli Manning the sole reason the Giants absolutely stink. This is a roster full of holes. You put him into a situation where he didn't have his best pass catcher in Odell Beckham Jr. Then you look at the guys on the outside. Sure, you've got Saquon and you've got Evan Ingram, but Sterling Shepard's hurt. Golden Tate's missing the first 4 games due to a PED suspension. Like, what the hell did you expect to happen here? You didn't give him a top flight of offensive line in front of him. Like, you just go on and on and on. And the defense is the shits. Like, what the hell did you think was going to happen here? So shame on the New York Giants for allowing sentimentality to cloud their better judgment. Everybody knew Eli Manning was washed up. Everybody knew it was time to move on from him after last season, if not after 2017, and yet you persisted. And as a result, you made a joke out of yourself. You made a mockery out of Eli Manning and his legacy and his career and all that he has meant to that Giants organization. And you set back the development of Daniel Jones by 2 games that he could have utilized early in his career. Ding dong, dumb dicks, that's not how it's supposed to be done. Unbelievable. So I do feel bad for Eli Manning in that case, because in part for the organization either A, being delusional about what they actually had in terms of a roster, or B, being sentimental to the point where they know it's a touchy thing, having to move on from a guy that's brought you so much over the years. They allowed it to cloud their better judgment, whatever it was, and as a result, they paid the price for it. Just a no-win situation, and they put Eli in that situation, and shame on them. That's stupid. I know I just might be some pasty dude on YouTube talking about it, but this is a perfect example of just because people work in the NFL or they're scouts, or in this case, they run front offices like Dave Gettleman, it doesn't mean they have a clue as to what the hell they're doing. Period. Got rid of Steve Smith when he was in Carolina. How'd that help Cam Newton's development long term? Get rid of Odell Beckham Jr. in New York. How'd that help Eli Manning? And how's that going to help your young first-round pick, the future face of the franchise, and Daniel Jones? Instead, what you're going to do is you're going to break down Saquon Barkley because you're going to have to overuse the hell out of him because you're idiots. So it brings you to this, though, is what's next for Eli Manning? How do you remember Eli Manning? What's his legacy going to be? And to me, I look at this and I say, if we're having real truth talk here, I just can't imagine current state right now, any team having any interest in bringing in Eli Manning in 2020. Where's the fit? Where's the talent or the upside to bringing him in? I also don't know, frankly, if Eli Manning is going to have any interest in playing in any other uniform. His family's up in that area. Like, you've had a good long career. You've made a lot of money. You've won world championships. You've made a bunch of money outside of the sport due to endorsements. You know, maybe it's time to let it go. Maybe it's time to move on from the game. Maybe it's time to hang him up. And if that's the decision and he ultimately decides to hang it up, we all know that Eli Manning will be a future Hall of Famer, which has always been an interesting dichotomy to be, because when you look at him, like, statistically, he's not that great. He's got longevity in his favor, but realistically, the 200 plus whatever the hell it was, consecutive starts or however many he had, that might have been the most impressive statistic that he had over the course of his career. From the fact that the time that he took over midway through 2004 for Kurt Warner until 2017 in McAdoo's dumb dick decision, he never missed a start. He had that ability of availability. But statistically, most of his seasons, he struggled to complete 60% of his passes. His highest completion percentage, I think, was 66 point something percent, and that was in 2018, and he was terrible then too. He had 3 seasons, I believe it was, where he threw for 30 touchdowns or more. He had 6 or 7 seasons where he threw for 4,000 yards, but that doesn't nearly mean as much as it once did. And when you really look at it, his QBR has always been lower level. His quarterback rating is lower level stuff. The only significant quarterback statistical category that Eli Manning has ever led is interceptions, and he did that 3 times. And for all the people that talk about he clutched up in the playoffs in 2007 and 2011, look, if we're being completely honest, transparent, and real with ourselves here, he clutched up in the sense of he made some big plays and big throws specifically in the Super Bowl. But even when you look statistically at 07 and 11, the 2 seasons that organization won the Super Bowl with him as a starting quarterback, his numbers overall are still relatively pedestrian, average at best. And every other time that team made the playoffs, how many playoff games did they win? The answer is 0. So I look at Eli Manning as like a more statistically significant version of a Broadway Joe Namath. And how ironic, Broadway Joe got his fame with the Jets in that same market. Now here's Eli Manning, a guy that everybody looks at and says, he's a Hall of Famer, but it's really hard to come up with a true statistical justification as to why he is a Hall of Famer. It's just something we kind of begrudgingly know and respect. Oh, he won 2 rings, that puts him in. He beat the Patriots twice, that puts him in. Weird to me. Now, I've seen people compare him over the years to Jim Plunkett, which is ridiculous. Jim Plunkett, outside of segments of those 80 and 83 seasons for the Raiders, was the shits in his career. You could have made the argument without those performances in 80 and 83 and leading the Raiders to those 2 Super Bowls, he'd been one of the great NFL draft bust of all time. He was a Heisman Trophy winner, number 1 overall pick from Stanford, and he sucked in the 70s. That's a fact. So he is not that. But it's just, I look at him and I'm like, outside of the 2 rings argument, you can't really make a great argument for him to be in the Hall of Fame. But he's going to be in there. And even at this point, I'm not going to really argue it. I always find it interesting, like Ernie Accorsi always gets all this credit for making the big move up the board to go take Eli Manning number 1 or get him from the Chargers who took him number 1 overall. And it's like, if you want to be real, Peyton, well, close enough. Eli at Ole Miss, if he didn't have Manning on the back of his jersey, was not a number 1 overall pick talent. And frankly, if you're old enough to remember, he was not a first-round talent. He was not. It was that name on the back of the jersey that clouded everybody's judgment, and that's a reality. And when you look at it from a pure talent standpoint, Big Ben's a better talent. He's a better overall quarterback. Phillip Rivers most certainly is a better pocket passer and better overall quarterback. It's crazy how it works out. When you win the 2 rings, just like the Steelers won 2 rings with Big Ben, so many other things just don't matter. Like the fact that the Giants made a big move up the board, basically traded away their rights to draft Sean Merriman the next year to go get the 3rd best quarterback in that 2004 class. Side note, I will say this. When you look at that 2004 draft class of quarterbacks, compare it to 1983, I know 83 has 35 plus years of history and legacy and all of that, and everybody talk about how great that quarterback class was. I'm sorry. When you look at overall statistical success and team success and championship caliber, give me the 2004 class. That class was better. Eli was the 3rd guy, and he's going to the Hall of Fame. You had 3 Hall of Fame quarterbacks in 83. I understand that. You had Elway, you had Jim Kelly, and you had Dan Marino. Give me Eli, Rivers, Big Ben over those 3. And then when you throw in Matt Schaub from that 2004 class, that 2004 class overall was better. If anything else, though, when thinking about Eli Manning, from the Eli face to everything else, over the past few years, it's been fun to crap on him from time to time. I can't lie. I'm going to miss that. But it's also going to be a stark reminder, watching him standing there on the sideline. It's going to be a really weird feeling. I mean, I was in my early 20s when his career started. He came out of Ole Miss. And now the man is pushing 40 just like me, and his career is over. I know Giants fans have a lot of conflicted feelings about this. Best thing I could say, is thank him for all the memories and the championships, and it is time to move on.